Hey Ryan, it's Laura. I don't know if I can make you a panelist or not. You can hear me. Ryan, can you hear me? I can hear you, I think.
Oh,
Well, I don't know if I can make you a panelist though, and I don't know if you need to be a
can
panelist, but
can you hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh,
But
okay.
I just don't know if I can make you a panelist. Like it won't let me click on.
I think I think that's fine. As long as I can see the participants list, because that's really all I need. Everything else I'm just listening.
Do you see it on the side there to the right?
The participants list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just says, well, it
Should
says
just should be you right now. I don't see anybody else.
um yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just
All right.
yeah, I can see it. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, just let me know if not, and I can screenshot it or something and send it to you. Just send me a message or
Okay.
something like that.
All right, cool.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks. Yep.
Good evening. How are you?
I love the background, Joe.
I'm still in my SpaceX. Capsule. I'll be still rotating around.
Just to let you guys know, Laura was logged on, but she's having some technical difficulties, so might just be a few minutes.
It's just the way of the world these days, right?
Yeah. Nicole, when you were speaking, we were getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I noticed that with you too. I don't know if everybody is muted or not. That was better.
I'm on. This is Joe. I don't hear me echo, but it was echoing before.
And I see myself as a host. I don't think that was right.
I wonder if Laura, because Laura logged on as host, but then hers froze. And so I'm wondering if, because I hadn't logged on yet because it was doing all these weird updates, if it made you the automatic host because nobody else was there to host it.
Yeah. Thank you. I noticed the update also.
Congratulations.
No, I'm nervous.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I didn't realize I could hold spacebar to unmute myself temporarily.
Yeah. That's a Webex feature. Lots of them have that. You hit the space bar and you unmute yourself.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
I've been clicking it on and off every time during these meetings. Little did I know.
It's weird. Maybe because I'm one of the hosts, it's not doing it for me. So.
Should I log out and log back in?
No, I'm going to see. I think I should be able to take the host back from you. So I'm going to try to see if I can do that now.
Okay.
I just always join from my other computer so I can see what it looks like as a panelist, just in case things are going awry.
Nicole, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I can reclaim host role.
Can you? Because right now it just has me as a panelist, so I can't.
Well, you know, with the participant, like down at the reclaim, is it not like highlighted that you can click on it?
Nope, it's not even there.
Okay. I just have to find the host key number and then I.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Where did it go?
I think I found a place that I can change Nicole to host. Should I go ahead and do that?
Hold on 1 second, Samantha,
Okay.
because I think I've got it. Almost.
Okay.
Hello. All right, I'm back.
Hey, I can see Laura.
So glad that you are back.
Yeah, when I signed back in, it said now I'm host, so I think you're off the hook, Samantha.
Okay,
so you're
good.
Let me see.
Maybe
think I
I
had-
took it from you, Laura.
You just did. Yep. It says now you're host. I mean, if you want to be host, you can be host.
It's okay, you can have it. I was just, before you had logged in, I was trying, because Nicole wasn't able to get it.
Let's see. Can you change my permissions, Kira? I think you have to elevate me to host now.
Okay, while those guys are figuring that stuff out, Joe, could I ask you if you would read the statement of purpose tonight, please?
I've been more than honored, sir. No problem at all. Alice.
Thank you.
No
Ask
problem.
Jason, and he just emailed me that, oh, I'm not there tonight.
No problem.
Okay, appreciate it.
No problem. A statement of purpose of intent of the historical overlay districts.
Oh, wait.
Are created for the purpose of promoting the general
Right.
welfare.
Wait until we start.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think what I need to do now. I'm so sorry. I was just practice.
Yeah, that's knee-jerk reaction. In the New World Order, I try to ask in advance.
Kira, if you right click on my name, I think you can change my permissions.
Okay. Okay, I think I just changed you to host.
Oh, I got it. I think I got it. Says reclaim host. Okay, now I'm host again. All right.
And Kira's going to try to send an invite to Kay and Steven because I don't have the panelist link because I'm a host.
Oh.
And I can't get to it once I'm in the session, so.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay, Kira, can you handle that? Can you get
Yes.
Kay and Steve on the line, and we'll go ahead and get started.
So do we have a quorum?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, we do.
We do, barely. Okay. That's enough to get started.
Okay, John, I think we're good.
We're good to go? Okay.
Mhm.
Well, good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the September 10th, 2020 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. I'll call the meeting to order. We have a number of motions we have to take care of first because of this meeting is in a virtual environment. And so I have to say this. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA, the ARB needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, and I ask you to advance for your patience. Number one, audibility of members' voices. First, because each member of this ARB is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, I am going to conduct a roll call and ask each ARB member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to assure that you can hear each of your other colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. Okay. Member Aubrey.
Yes, I'm here. I'm in my residence and I can hear you, so I assume I can hear everybody else.
Thank you. Mr. Daniel.
This is Chris Daniel. I'm home at my residence in Ruston, Virginia, and I can hear it.
Ms. Huang.
Yes, this is Samantha. I'm from my resident home and I can hear everyone well.
Mr. Klinsky, have you joined us yet? Perhaps not. He had some connectivity issues. We'll come back to him. Ms. Murray?
I am here from my residence in Vienna, Virginia.
Thank you. Ms. Notkins? Okay, we'll wait on her. Ms. Orr? Okay, no answer there. Mr. Plumpy?
Sure. My name is Joseph Plumpy, Fairfax Station, Virginia residence right now, and in front of my new fireplace I just built yesterday. Thank you. I can hear you well.
Thank you. And we know that Mr. Zellman is not going to be here tonight. Okay, let me go back and see if Mr. Kalinsky has been able to join us. Mr. Kalinsky, are you there?
Mr. Kalinsky said he's still having some issues,
Still having some issues. Okay.
as well as Ms. K. Orr.
As well as Ms. Orr.
Okay, I see Steve is on as a panelist or as a attendee. So no, he's on as a panelist now. So oh, there he is.
Okay, Mr. Kalinsky, can you hear us and verify that you are able to hear and participate in the meeting from wherever it is you're located?
Yes, I can hear it from my office in Alexandria.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and we're waiting on Ms. Orr?
That is correct.
Okay. And am I correct that Ms. Notkins will not join us tonight?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we're missing Ms. Notkins and Mr. Zellman. Hopefully in a few minutes we'll have Ms. Orr back.
John, do we want to proceed with, since we did
Well, we have to motion verifying audibility of all the members can hear. Here, Laura, do you have any update? Okay.
Not at this moment. Oh, here, it looks like she is
here
here.
as a participant, though, so I think she might be finally joining us.
Okay. Ms. Orr, are you able to hear me? You may need to unmute yourself.
Oh, there we go.
Kay, are you there? I just unmuted you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And you're reporting from your residence, I presume?
My dad's, yes.
Okay. Okay.
I'm in Florida.
Life is tough. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. We have now established we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I make 8 members present. That is a quorum. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to the vice chairman so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I take the gavel.
Okay, I move that each member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll gladly second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky, followed by Ms. Orr. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed indicate like sign. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay, second motion then is quorum of ARB
And
members.
sorry, just real quick, John, if you guys aren't the one speaking, just make sure to mute yourselves.
Yeah, we're getting lots of feedback. Thank you. Okay, motion number 2, as determined by the roll call, 8 that satisfied the ARB quorum minimum. The ARB bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Joe Plumpy.
Motion seconded by Mr. Plumpy. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay, motion number 3, need for an electronic meeting. Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the ARB and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through Webex, a county virtual meeting platform and available for access through the ARB county website, or through phone at 1-408-418-9388 with access code 173-794-9483. It is so moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Ms. Albrey. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Motion 4, need to dispense with FOIA's usual procedures to assure continuity in government continue operations. Finally, it is next required that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Do I have a second?
Joe Plumpy.
I'll
Seconded
second.
by Mr. Plump. Oh, seconded by Mr. Plumpy. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay, and the 5th and last of the prerequisite motions, public comments. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during the public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after the consent agenda items and after each action item as a standard ARB practice. The draft motion is, I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Was that Ms. Orr, I believe?
Yes.
Okay, seconded by Ms. Orr. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Here is your gavel, sir.
Thank you. I accept the gavel. Laura, are there virtual meeting WebEx information announcements tonight?
Yes, just real quickly. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the September 10th meeting. During today's meeting, the attendees will be in listen-only mode. If you have a question during the presentation, please enter it by using the Q&A panel or in the chat panel. If you're in the full screen view, click the question mark icon located on the floating toolbar on the lower right side of your screen to open the panel, and simply type your question and click the send button. Staff is monitoring both the chat and the Q&A if you have any questions. As a reminder, this presentation is being recorded, and if you have any other technical issues that we can't help you solve, please contact the WebEx technical support at 1-866-779-3239. All yours, Chairman Burns.
Thank you. We traditionally open this meeting with the reading of the statement and purpose and intent of the Historic Overlay District Ordinance. And tonight, Mr. Plumpy has graciously, on short notice, agreed to read that for us. Mr. Plumpy.
Sure, thank you, Chairman Burns. The statement of purpose and intent of historical overlay districts. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of these general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, and archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to ensure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plumpy.
Sure.
First action item will be approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Daniel. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Ms. Aubrey. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. Hearing no nays, the motion carries unanimously. Laura, do you have guests and staff you want to introduce tonight?
Not at this time. Everyone in the attendees list is related to an item tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay. Tonight there are no consent action items, and so we'll move straight to action items. And the first one is ARB-05-LFK-02 amendment. It's a proposal for exterior modifications to a single-family residential dwelling located at 1000 Gold Hill Lane, tax map 22-3, double paren 08, lot 0004A. And the application is proposing modifications. They were here at a workshop last month, and they're back for action item. Mr. Greg Wiedemann Architects, is representing the application. Mr. Wiedemann, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, and do you want to take control and put your screen up and show your presentation, or do you want Nicole to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I press share content?
Yes,
that's correct.
Here you go.
Does everyone on the board see my screen?
I can see it.
Clear.
Yes.
Right. You could also go to a full slide presentation. We'll see larger part of your screen.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I don't see where that is.
Way down in the lower right on the red bar, next to the slider. There. Oh, you just passed it. There you go, that one. Got it. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Burns, and good evening to members of the board. As Chairman Burns mentioned, we were at a work session and presented this project for an interior renovation. We are now coming back with a few exterior changes to the to the structure, and I'll go through this, although some of it's a repeat of what I presented at the time of the workshop. The property that we're looking at is at 1000 Dog Hill Lane, which is at the northern reach of the historic district, as indicated here on this drawing of the overlay district. It constitutes 2 lots. The lot to the east here is part of the historic district, and there is an additional portion of the property which is not. The house was built in I believe it was constructed in 1996 and renovated in 2005. And it sits at the end of this cul-de-sac. It is the image that you see here on the left. The house is not really visible from Georgetown Pike, as illustrated here. The house under construction is located where my cursor is on the rightmost slide. And you're seeing just a glimpse of our property, which is indicated there. This is the drive down. Again, with the construction of the new house, I think our property would not be visible from any of the historic properties. One thing I wanted to point out that I pointed out during the workshop is that this house appears to have a very low roof compared to its neighbor. One of the things that we're proposing to do is to raise the roof of slightly more than 2 feet. This just illustrates that all views from historic properties are really blocked by significant vegetation. The changes that we talked about at our first workshop will be what we are also including in this application. We are proposing to remove the brick in this sort of false coining on the left and the right, and fill that in with with matching stone, so this central block will be entirely stone. We are also proposing, we are removing a synthetic slate roof, and we're proposing to install another synthetic slate roof of very similar character, but we are raising the roof approximately 2 or 2.5 feet above its current peak. I will show you that in the elevations. We're also proposing to change the existing door, something fairly similar in character, but black in color. And we're going to be painting the shutters a darker color. We're proposing a black door and black shutters. Moving around to the back, this chimney, which currently exists, is going to be reworked. I'll be showing you that. And this bay facing the driveway side on the east will be extended. The railings that are currently on the balconies are not code compliant because of the gaps between the members, and we are proposing to replace those. And some of the windows, or actually these are doors, door panels. We're proposing to replace some of them with fixed glass that will have a slightly greater amount of glazing. We are not presenting a landscape plan at the moment. We have a preliminary one that's shown on our site plan, but we'll be coming back to the Architectural Review Board with a landscape plan at a subsequent meeting. So this is the current site plan. Front of the house being here, driveway on the right. Some of the exterior changes are that we're going to be reglazing the windows in each of these two bays. We'll be adding a bay on this side, adding a glazed link to a octagonal solarium that will be in the garden in this location. This is the proposed site plan. One thing I didn't mention is that we're building a small enclosure. There's an existing elevator that serves the lower two floors of the house from the basement level to the first floor. And currently that's only accessible from the outside. We're proposing to create a small enclosed entryway that will allow one to move from the garage at the lower level into the elevator without going outside. This illustrates the octagonal solarium that we're proposing and the glazed link that we're calling the winter garden. Some of the changes that have occurred since our workshop is that the solarium has gotten slightly larger. It's now 33 feet in diameter instead of 29.8. We're also proposing a trash enclosure where my cursor is. I'll show you that in elevation. So at the lowest level, really the only change is that enclosed access to the elevator. What you're seeing here is support for the bay that's directly above in the kitchen. And you're seeing the link here to the solarium. I'll speak about the solarium and the rear addition in a moment. This is the first floor plan. On your left is the existing plan. On the right is the proposed plan. We have clouded any changes that have occurred since the workshop meeting. And those are the changing of these windows where we want to increase the amount of glass. We're not changing them structurally. We're also doing the same thing here where there are doors. Again, we're replacing them with fixed casement style windows. The rear, we're reconfiguring this room in the back, which I believe was added in the 2005 edition. And we want to reconfigure it and remove the diagonal masonry fireplace in this location and insert a freestanding fireplace in this location. In so doing, we're creating a new chimney, which takes the fireplace from the bedroom immediately above. And that's what you're seeing in this location. On the second floor, we'll be adding or removing the existing railings and replacing those with railings that are code compliant. This illustrates the extension on the first floor. This is the winter garden, which is a glazed link to the solarium. The solarium is going to, instead of having windows that disappear down to the lower level, they will pocket into the walls, but they will be wood. They will appear to be look like French windows or French doors. They'll be elevated about 18 inches off of the solarium floor. The intention is that all of these will be motorized. The pocket windows will pocket into the walls, and there'll be rolling screens and rolling shades that are motorized from the inside. This is the trash enclosure that we're proposing. I'll show you that in elevation in a moment. But looking down, it will have a pergola appearance, so it will screen the view from the winter garden. The solarium will have a copper standing seam roof, and the existing roof will be extended upward. I'm sorry. So these are the elevations. The change You can see that the roof is slightly higher in the proposed, that the stone has been extended where the brick coining was originally located. We're replacing the lanterns, and we're going to make these gas lanterns, and replace the door with a black gloss finish and a new door, and the shutters will be dark or black. Sorry. On the east side of the house, we're adding this bay, which we showed you during the workshop. The trash enclosure has changed slightly in design with a single pair of doors instead of two doors. It has the arbor that I was describing above, or pergola. What you're seeing here is the link to the solarium. You're also seeing the rebuilt chimney, which is right here. Sorry. The solarium will have a brick exterior appearance with fiberglass columns that will be painted, and the copper roof with a cupola above. You'll notice here, I should have pointed out earlier that this window is being modified, and again, we showed you that at the workshop. The rear elevation, this is the chimney that's being replaced by this chimney. We're matching the detail at the top of the chimney here. We're addressing a water issue that has occurred between the existing chimney and these small discrete shed dormers. And we're also accommodating a recess for a grill at the lower level, so that's convenient to the main living space. This illustrates where we are replacing glazing in these projecting bays. And this is the trash enclosure seen from the side. On the west side of the house, the glazing of this projecting semicircular bay is being replaced with a more transparent appearance to look out into the garden. All of the railings are being replaced with a new code-compliant railing. The solarium has gotten about a foot or so taller than it was by virtue of the enlargement of the footprint, which was required to accommodate the doors that we are presently pocketing into the walls. So instead of having these windows descend into a lower level, they are now pocketing into the slide walls. This illustrates the material palette. We intend to maintain the white or off-white painted brick, both in the additions that we do to the main house, as well as the solarium. We feel confident we can match the veneer that was used on the front of the facade to replace the brick coining. This is a very high quality synthetic slate roof made by Da Vinci, and this is the color. It's a smoke gray color. Synthetic roof, some synthetic roofs can fade over time, and this was our concern when we add the additional height, so we've decided to use a new material throughout. This is a lantern that is proposed for the front of the house. The current shutters are raised panel shutters, and they will be painted a black color similar to this. The actual shutters themselves will be maintained. This illustrates the appearance of the proposed front door on the left. We're using a Chippendale feature panel and balusters for the railings. And there's some posts in the details of the curved bays. We intend to use a paintable cellular PVC for low maintenance, which when painted will look, as you know, just like wood. The roof of the solarium will be a standing seam copper roof. And the trash enclosure will mimic some of the existing trellises that are currently on the house and the outbuilding. So I think that covers everything that we've presented, and we are asking the board's approval of these changes.
Thank you, Mr. Wiedemann. Laura, has anyone by chat or Q&A expressed any interest in commenting on this proposal?
I don't see anyone at this time.
Okay, then I will go through a roll call of the members of the board alphabetically by their last names and ask for their comments or questions. Ms. Aubrey, you're first.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the applicant for the presentation and for sending it to us in advance where we were able to review it. And I have no questions or comments for him. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Daniel.
Sorry, my mute button wasn't working. I have no further comments at that time. I appreciate the applicant updating on the changes made in response to our comments.
Okay. Ms. Swan?
I too do not have any comments nor question.
Okay. Mr. Kalinsky?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burns. I just want to compliment the applicant, a very well thought out and very nicely detailed work. The addition renovation, I think, is going to really complement what was already a stately house. So very, very, very well done.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Murray?
I have no comments.
Okay. Ms. Orr?
Oh, sorry. Well done. I'm sorry. I'll get this. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Plumpy?
Yeah, yes, I want to say well done also the presentation. My wife is very jealous that you have a nice, beautiful copper roofed sun room, winter room, excuse me. It's beautiful. I'm the landscape architect. I look forward to seeing your garden landscape plans in the future. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Plumpy. My own comments would be pretty much echoing what everyone else has said. This is a thoughtful, well put together presentation. I think that the subtle detailed changes that you're making in addition to the enlargement of certain areas will improve the overall quality of the house. And like Mr. Plumpy, I look forward to seeing an equally skillful landscape plan to accompany the changes you're proposing tonight. That is essentially the comments and questions from the board. I would entertain a motion on this action item.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve an amendment to ARB 05 LFK 02 located at 1000 Doug Hill Lane, tax map 22-3 /08 0004A in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District for the proposal for exterior modifications to a single-family residential dwelling as submitted and presented at the September 10th, 2020 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Is there a second?
I'll gladly second that.
Okay, Mr. Kalinsky is the second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And all opposed, say nay. Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Wiedemann.
Thank you, Chairman Burns and members of the board. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. And action item number 2 is ARB-20-LOR-08, proposal for modifications to building H40 near the Workhouse area, located in the Laurel Hill Adaptive Reuse Area, tax-mac numbers 106-4/01, lot 0058. The applicant proposes to replace the entire roof to recent storm damage and other associated modifications. They were here for a workshop last month as well. And we have Ms. Natalie Light of the Fairfax County Facilities Management Department, who will represent the application and present it to us tonight. Ms. Knight, are you there? I see your initials. Okay. Can you share your screen for the presentation, or do you need us to do that for you?
Yes, I'll share my screen. Thank you. Good evening. Hello, good evening. Thanks for having us back again. This is again for the building H40 in the DC Workhouse and Reformatory Historic District. And it was a building that was built in 1929 as a residence for staff at the prison. And it's a 2.5-story building. This was the storm damage that you saw from the pictures last month, and wanted to this time show you some of the additional details that we found when you were asking about the seams. They do actually, stand up a little bit. They are approximately 3/4 of an inch tall, and the seams are approximately about 17.5 inches apart, and the gutters are currently the K style, but at that time that the house was built, they would have had the half round gutters, and so that's what we will be replacing them with. And we will be replacing everything in kind as much as we can and match the style and color best that we can with the steel is what we were going to go with. Thank you. Looking forward to hearing any further questions that you have or any comments.
Okay, thank you for that succinct presentation tonight. Laura, is there anyone by chat or Q&A ask any questions?
Hi, this is Laura. I know Regina Coyle, I think she's just listening in the audience. So Ms. Coyle, if you do have any questions, please let us know and we'll let you know. But other than that, no questions so far. Okay, thank you. Then I will go around to the members of the board again as last time. Ms. Aubrey?
I have no questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Daniel.
I want to thank the applicant for coming back to us with answering some of the questions we had here. I think, as we indicated last time, we're very happy to see this project happen because it's protecting a county interest and a heritage resource. And I don't think I have any other questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Ms. Huang?
I don't have any comments nor questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kalinsky.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burns. Just a quick question for the applicant. what size will the half round gutters be? Is it a 5 or a 6 inch?
We're gonna go with the 6-inch.
Okay, well, good after experiencing today's rains here. And the steel roof that you're going to use, you are proposing to do a raised seam and to match the spacing and profiles of the existing. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that's correct.
So you're going to get as close to that 3/4 inch raised seam as possible.
Yes.
And the 16 or 17 inch, 17 or 18 inch, sorry, spacing between on the pans. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay, and Ms. Murray?
Nothing.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Orr?
Looks good. Thank you so much.
Mr. Plumpy?
No comments at all. Thank you. Great job.
Okay, I do have a question since you still have your presentation up. In the right hand of the 4 photographs, you can actually see the stamp of the roof manufacturer in that metals. Did you learn anything from that?
I know that Stephanie Gaines is here with me again. I would check back with her and see if she had any more details about that.
Wow, good eye, Don. I couldn't even see that.
Yeah. It's on the left hand of the middle panel there.
Left hand of the middle. Which photograph?
It's the far right of the 4 photographs that are currently on the screen. And it's below the 2 to 4 inch mark on the tape measure.
Huh.
It's got like a curved top name and then several lines of text below that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We did not learn anything about that, but I can most definitely ask the contractor doing demolition to save that piece.
That's worth saving, and then putting in the museum or something like that. It tells something about what was going on, what the technology of the day was, and how roofers let people know who did their work. It's an interesting little artifact to have survived.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that.
That will not be a condition of the approval you're seeking, though. Just a recommendation. I have no further questions other than that my curiosity being piqued by that stamp on the roof pan. I would entertain a motion on this action item.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Mr. Klinsky.
All right, I move that the ARB approve ARB-20-LOR-08 located in Laurel Hill Adaptive Reuse Area, tax map numbers 106-4 /01 0058 for the proposal for modifications to the roof of the building H-40 near the Workhouse area, as submitted and presented at the September 10th, 2020 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposals found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200 historic overlay district.
Thank you. Is there a second?
So Plumpy, I second it.
Was that Mr. Plumpy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Plumpy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Knight. Appreciate the presentation and good luck with the project.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving right along, there are no workshop session items. And so we can go straight into the presentation that's scheduled, and that's the Historic Overlay District's Design Guidelines Rewrite Update. We have several folks from EHG Traceries with us tonight, Sarah Bonish, Laura Hughes, and Catherine Wallace.
Good evening. Laura, are you on?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We're very excited to give you an update and let you know where we are in the process of our design guideline work.
I'm just trying to pull up the slides.
Okay.
Sarah, this is Laura Arsenault. I just passed you the there you go. Presentation.
Cool.
Sorry, I had some dogs barking in the background, but all right, we're good now. Okay.
Okay.
Laura Hughes.
This is Laura Arsenault. Are you looking for Laura Hughes?
Yeah, there she is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Can you flip to the next slide, Sarah?
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Our agenda tonight is to provide you an update for where we are since our initial meeting on January 9th, when we presented the goals and scope of work project. We had one additional meeting since that January 9th meeting with the Holland Hills Steering Committee on January 21st. And so our agenda really is to show you where we are in the process, to update you on the work we've done to date, and to update the schedule, and then to review the draft material that we've prepared.
Okay, could I interrupt you just for a second? I'm getting at least a lot of feedback. So could everybody please mute except Laura?
Okay, that's a lot better.
Better, thank you. I will mute myself too.
Okay, great. And just to reiterate, we wanted to just remind everyone of the project goals. And I think we've really kept these in mind as we've been doing our work the last few months and preparing the draft outlines and draft design guidelines. But really the primary goal is to create a user-friendly set of design guidelines that are graphically interesting. And to that end, we've really taken a lot of time and taken a lot of amazing photographs. And I think that will be a big difference in the design guidelines, having just updated visuals that really help present each historic district overlay. And I think very clearly illustrate the design principles and planning principles that we're trying to talk about in each design guideline. Next slide. So we really had 3 scopes of work. The first one was to develop the overarching design guidelines, which were really to lay out the principles of the architectural and planning principles in a very general manner. And then really to talk about the ARB process and how projects are reviewed and what projects are reviewed. And then the second task is to create very district-specific design guidelines that really highlight the individual characteristics of each design, each district. And then as a separate task, we're also preparing design guidelines for the potential Holland Hills Historic District overlay. Next slide. So this was our initial scope of work, and it also illustrates where we are in the process. In the intervening months since we met in January, where we kicked off the project, we have done all of our site visits and research on the individual districts. And that was really just update and background research that we needed to do. But we have visited each district and taken extensive photographic documentation. We've also prepared outline templates for the overarching design guidelines as well as the individual design guidelines. And right now we are preparing draft design guidelines, and we have one of those to share with you tonight. Next slide. And this is just to remind everyone of the project schedule. There has been some jiggering just because of our inability to have some of the meetings that were planned, as well as some of the outreach that was planned. But we have been able to get a lot of work done in the months that we've not been able to do the public meetings that we wanted to. And so we're here presenting the draft design guidelines tonight. And then the following months, we will really continue working on these drafts, particularly for the individual overlay districts, so that we have drafts of each of those documents. But you can see the schedule as we've sort of revised it now, and hopefully we can do some additional presentations later in the year. And this similarly is Holland Hills schedule. We did have a meeting in January with the working group, and we've been working on draft design guidelines. And I guess we are sort of on a holding pattern a little bit with those design guidelines, just pending some of the work that Laura is doing with the designation process. But we are continuing to work on the draft for those for Holland Hills. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
So I know you haven't had a lot of time with these materials, so I'm going to walk through the outlines for both the overall design guidelines and then an example of the district-specific design guidelines, which will be Bull Run Stone Bridge. Interrupt me if you have questions as I'm going through. If you want to follow up with additional questions or comments, we can coordinate with staff. But I'll just go in. As Laura said, the overall design guidelines cover the basics of historic overlay districts and the project review process. And then it goes into the planning, architectural and planning principles that you outlined this is based on the 2016 workshop and meeting minutes that we received. So, and this is also the template that we've prepared and worked on with staff, just so as you see it. So we have the first chapter, which is just the introduction to the Fairfax County Historic Overlay Districts. I have a couple discussion topics outlined here. I know we watched the meeting from last month and know that some of these came up. We can hold off on discussing these to the end of the presentation. Or we can do it now. It's up to you. But the section will cover the back.
John, I have a quick question. So you mentioned this is we haven't had much time to interact with this. I don't think I've seen any of this before, so this would be the first time I've seen this. This wasn't in the materials on the FTP site, was it, Laura?
Yeah, that's correct. This is just an overall presentation.
Okay, I just wanted to prepare Laura and Sarah that I don't think any of us have seen this before at all. So just expect fresh reactions.
Okay, no problem. So we have the introduction to the Historic Overlay General Design Guidelines, which provide a background of historic overlay districts, their purpose, how they're established or designated, an overview of district boundaries and the definitions of the boundaries, and property classifications. So this again just points out the historic versus contributing element that we may want to discuss here, and the district boundaries as well. So I'm going to come back to this at the end so that you can see everything. So the second section of the overall design guidelines, as we've outlined them, just provides the project review process. It outlines the types of projects that require review, the process and procedure, including just a kind of a chart to help applicants understand the process and how you go through it, as well as a checklist of the project submission requirements. And then we go into the preservations basics, planning a project in a historic overlay district. And this has a lot of the meat of the document. It kind of provides applicants with a overview of how you go through that process and looking at historic buildings versus non-contributing buildings, give some information on preservation incentives if they're interested, outlines the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and the ARB's use of those standards in review of projects. And then we go into the architectural and planning principles that applicants should consider as they are working through these projects. And these are based on again, that 2016 workshop that the board had on designing guidelines. And we're still in the process of updating the illustrations, but this just gives you an idea of how the document is set up with the different topics and heavily illustrated, just to give you an idea. So then we have the appendix of the general design guidelines that provide contact information, a glossary, additional resources, including links to the Secretary of the Interior standards and guidelines for rehabilitation and the other treatments. So then the district specific design guidelines, and these are treated as two separate documents. They can be combined easily if needed, but for the purposes of this presentation, we have outlined the Bull Run Stone Bridge Historic District, Overlay District. Again, here's the table of contents. We have the introduction, history and significance of the district, overview of the boundaries and zoning, and then the design guidelines and appendix. So regulations, in the regulations and project review requirements will be a condensed version of what is in the main document, and it would link to the overall historic overlay district design guidelines as well. And then just a background on how to use the guidelines. We have the history and significance of the historic district overlay district, including a statement of significance and development history, and just a timeline showing that development. And a lot of this comes from the initial designation report and additional research to update that information. So the overview kind of outlines the preservation objectives and goals in the district, zoning, existing land use and development potential. And that kind of covers what we observed on our site visit and an understanding of what's in the surroundings and what development potential there is in this historic overlay district specifically. It also includes an inventory of the resources. In this case, there's only one contributing resource or historic property that's named, and that's the Bull Run Stone Bridge parcel. Others are identified as non-contributing, but we do outline the character defining features in the district, including the rural character, which you can see in the other parcels as well. So, and we separate them by architectural, landscape, and site features and archaeological. Here's just the existing zoning map and just like an update that we've done. So then we go into the design guidelines. Bull Run obviously is very heavy on the landscape and archaeological guidelines, whereas other districts, including Holland Hills, will have a lot more guidance on materials and building form. It's just the nature of each district is so different. So the district specific design guidelines, an intro, the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation again. And then the guidelines are separated by preserving the setting, including the topography, landscape, and archaeology, preserving the architectural character, In this case, it's really just about the preservation of and rehabilitation of the stone bridge, as there's no other identified contributing or historic resources in the district, and guidelines for architectural compatibility for new construction and new additions. And this is how we have the guidelines organized for every historic overlay district, but they will differ in the contents, obviously, to address the specific nature of those districts. And again, in this case, we have an appendix with a glossary of terms and additional resources. So Laura touched on the upcoming meetings. There's a lot in flux because of COVID, but we're working with staff to reach out and have additional public meetings and outreach, including meetings with the ARB. So that is TBD. So that's the end of my presentation. I can go back to those discussion items unless you want to discuss anything else at this time.
Well, as Mr. Daniel pointed out, all of this is new to us tonight. Mm-hmm. And so it might be difficult for us to come up with a broad range of questions on such short notice. One thing I'll ask is, can you provide this PowerPoint to Laura so that she can share it with the rest of the board?
And I do also have, just the draft documents, and Laura has those. So perhaps Laura can distribute those, and I'm happy to come back next month if you want to continue this discussion.
That might be a good idea, but let's tell you what, let's go through and we'll go through the roll call like we did for action items. Okay. And ask people if they have specific questions or comments or concerns. And then based on that feedback, we might decide whether or not it would be helpful to give us a month to review the materials we've assembled so far, and then have a more in-depth discussion next month. That might be a way of doing it. Let me give that a shot. Ms. Arbery?
I've secured that there's progress made, and it's really hard to offer any suggestions or comments, at this point, because tonight is the first that I've seen anything. And so I look forward to reviewing the draft materials at whatever stage they are at now, so that I can, hopefully I will be at that point be able to offer some constructive comments for you all. But it's, so far, based on the presentation, it looks like you're going in a good direction, but I just can't offer anything specific without having actually read the current draft.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Again, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. Mr. Daniel.
All right, so I would definitely agree with Michelle that this is the first look at it, so my reactions are going to be mostly from the gut. It's obviously already prettier than what we had before and more visual, which I think was a problem that we highlighted in the past, that our guidelines were very draconian and basically just a set of, textual requirements that most folks literally passed over, and considering how old they were, they probably looked like an outdated document to the passerby. So I like the look in general already because it's giving examples from the properties in the districts, and hopefully each one of these individual supplements will draw on the historic properties so that when we're talking to applicants, we can point to those exact examples, which I think is a key thing that many applicants miss out on, is they come to us saying, oh, this will blend in the district, and not us not being able, well, if we look at the guidelines, you'll see that we're showing those features, and I'm not seeing any of that there. So I would be very happy to see those types of calls and all the materials presented. I was very interested in what you said about what you've done to the maps and how you've provided more information on those. So I'm very curious as to what's going on there. So if you have any, I would love to see them pulled up again because I got a quick second to glance at them.
Of course, yeah. And It's just a, sorry, I got feedback. Draft to more clearly identify the buildings and the contributing within the district. So they're consistent with the existing. I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Mute myself.
Okay, sorry. They're consistent with the existing zoning maps, just more clearly call out those elements. So, and again, they're just a draft.
No, but I think that's a excellent addition because that is going to help a little bit for applicants in and of themselves. They're a little cleaner and a little bit more easy to process the information we're asking for them. Again, a lot of this is going to be some of the other materials I'm just going to want to see and get a reaction to. I mean, the initial impression is, yes, this seems positive. I'd want to know how much time we're going to get from Laura to get back to you, because I want to be able to give you feedback in a succinct manner so that we're not, you know, we'll keep making headway here, because I know this COVID situation obviously snarled the entire process, and I'm already happy to see something that looks, you know, like other guidelines I've seen in any other historic district community, that actually is something that someone can tangibly look at and grasp concepts. So I'm pleased there. So I'm looking forward to reviewing it more.
Okay, Ms. Huang?
I agree with Ms. Arbery and Mr. Daniel's comments, so I don't have further comments.
Okay, Mr. Kalinsky.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burns. Thank you for the presentation. I think the key takeaway here is I've learned in my business that visuals really count. So the more pictures and obviously if they are identified or, you know, given some sort of brief descriptor, I think the more effective the guidelines will be. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Murray.
I don't have really anything to add. I would just say ditto to most of everybody's comments. I think we're making a lot of progress. If we're going to talk about the historic question, please provide us some background so we don't have to break into it fresh, because I left last month kind of confused over what was what. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Orr?
I like the way it's going. It already looks so much better, and it will be something they will use. Thank you.
Mr. Plumpy?
I would say the maps are great. I'm a landscape architect, so plans are very important to me. The other thing I was going to say is that if it's possible to see if you have a plan view of an aerial photograph of our district with the boundaries on it, so that people can get a context of what it is from the aerial view, you know, so it's a little more realistic. I mean, the zoning maps are great, but I'd love to see another of the aerial of it, you know, just a Google map or something like that. Clean, if you could, that would go along. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Plumpy. My own comments would be, yes, I want to see the written stuff. I want to see the details behind the presentation today. And several other folks have alluded to the importance of graphics. And I have a rule of thumb when you're talking about architecture. You have to tell half of the story in the illustrations and captions and half of it in the text, because people in this world are graphically oriented. Some people in the world are textual oriented, and you need to address both sides. And so universally, all of the photographs that you've added, all of the extra detail in the maps are a wonderful improvement. And you've ended up in a cohesive and attractive format for presenting it. And I'm hoping that when we dive into the details, we'll see that those are equally well thought out. And so I look forward to that. But from what folks have said, it does sound like it would be a good idea if we can review these materials and ask you if you could come back to our October meeting so that we might discuss the details that we don't see in the overview presentation at that time. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, of course. That's I'd be happy to come back next month to discuss in more detail.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Burns?
And that would be wonderful. I really look forward to seeing this stuff. So, Mr. Daniel, did you have a question?
No, this is Joe Pompey.
Mr. Pompey, sorry.
No, and this is Sarah and Laura also, and Sarah. Will the end product be only electronic? Will it be printed? And will there be individual books like we have right now? Or is it just one big website you go to and then you select and click?
Well, I think they'll be available digitally and in print, but I would defer to Laura. I mean, we haven't been designing them as standalone websites, but I think, you know, the planning website has clear locations and links for these things. So, Laura, I will let you answer that.
Thanks, all. And my sincere apologies. I dropped the ball on getting you all the draft proposal before tonight. So my apologies on that. But we will move forward. At least we have an overview of kind of what to look for. Staff had an opportunity to review them twice, I think, at least, and we've been happy with what we have so far. So I think you all will be pleased as well, and it sounds like you are. As for a digital version, I think we'll have them both. A lot of times I print out the design guidelines and hand them to an applicant that's come in, or have a booklet of some sort, or copies that I can make. So we'll probably have it dual. But in these days, it seems like everything's done virtual. So I think we'll just, at this point, I don't think we have, identified if we're going to have a number of copies or anything like that. But we'll make sure we'll work with tracers to make sure they're formatted for both.
Yeah, Laura, this is Chris. I thought at least in the version I saw when you guys were developing the RFP, there was a request to produce a certain amount of physical copies, but the intent was to produce a PDF version that would be something like that would be accessible for the members of the public so they could download the book and print it if they wanted to. I think I selfishly wanted the ARB members to receive a copy in the end, so we would have one to go through, since many of us, I think, have a chance to love books and, printed materials.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think now thinking about it a little bit more, I think we have like 30 copies or something like that we asked for hard copies. But we will make sure they're formatted for both. And we'll just move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, if I could add a couple of comments further on that. I noticed in the presentation tonight, you have the automatic 508 compliant toggle switched on. So you have these little things. If you move your cursor over one of those two maps, you can see it. It pops up and it says a picture containing text, map, description, judgment. Anyway, so is there any requirement that the final product here be 508 compliant? Or is that something the county does afterwards?
Son, is that 508? Is that the ADA compliance? Is that what you're referring to? Yeah. Okay. Different speak. But yes, that is something I think I'll have to check the scope again, but I think we're working with tracers on at least starting that. If not, we have the ability to do it once we're finished as well. Okay, and then one other thing, since this will generate primarily to the public or present to the public primarily as a PDF document, I noticed that in one of the covers or inside covers, I forget what it was, there was an entire page of black, which if someone wanted to print this out would use up a whole lot of ink. So I don't know if there are ways of having a print version of it not have really huge dark sections of text print. I don't know the technology in PDF printing to know how to do that, but that's just something that struck my mind. Since I'm burning through a lot of home ink doing my work from home here, it's amazing how quickly you have to replace your ink cartridges. Just a thought that occurred based on that dark background.
We can look into that.
Okay, well, I don't see any other hands raised or people speaking up. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. I'm delighted to see the progress you've been able to make despite current conditions. Clearly, you can drive around and take pictures without too much impediment, but in terms of meeting with people and sitting down and talking about things, That's obviously a very difficult thing at the moment. And so I will look very much forward to having you back next month. Mr. Daniel, sir.
So I don't want to, I know you were about to tell them thanks and everything, but I thought the folks mentioned there were a few topics they wanted to run by us in general. Were those things that we could still discuss, or were, because we haven't seen this, is that beyond the scope of today's discussion? I just remember that at the beginning of the presentation.
Right. If you could go back to the page and have the boxes around certain topics.
Sure. And this is based on watching your month's meeting and the idea of historic versus contributing. So, I mean, it's certainly something we can discuss again next month. This was just in response to your meeting last month and clarification of what you intend to use going forward so that the design guidelines.
I wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Albury that I am equally confused following our last meeting as to what we are now calling historic, contributing, and non-contributing.
Here, I'll give a quick summary. As of this point, nothing is changing because it's a more procedural issue than an editorial issue for ZMOD. So the discussion basically came out is a property, we have three terms that we can call a property in a historic district. We have historic, contributing, and then non-contributing. And so the discussion came up of what is historic and what's the definition of historic and how is it treated? Is it treated differently than a contributing structure? So that came up in our ZMOD discussion and also with traceries because we're trying to determine what we were going to call these buildings that were going on the maps and things like that. So at the last meeting we brought up the memo from 1991-92 that was just basically an inventory of contributing structures we had, and the definition of a historic structure, I'm sorry, the definition of a contributing structure or non-contributing structure was very vague. So the whole point of this effort with traceries 2 is to update kind of all of our definitions and come up with a new definition. And once those are determined, we would go back and ask for a change to the zoning ordinance and change the entire section to reflect what we kind of determine out of this process. So go ahead. I know someone wants to jump in.
I was going to say, sorry, for the record, I'm sorry, I meant Miss Murray, not Miss Aubrey. So for the minutes there.
I'm sure Ryan's on top of it. But yes, so the goal is to do this research, to have the research with traceries be pretty close to completed, and then figure out what we want to move forward with in the zoning ordinance modifications and the proposals in there. And once we finish with traceries, we would be able to have like the PDF documents and things like that. So if we wanted to change the maps or change the wording or nomenclature, we would be able to do that as well. So, you know, it's kind of a dual process here. So every time we talk about this, it's like, is ZMOD going to come first? Is this going to come first? But as the discussion happened last month, and it's very confusing, is the point of there's too much surrounding the definition of historic, contributing, and non-contributing to include it in an editorial change to ZMOD. So at this point, we're going to leave ZMOD as is, let the HOD design guidelines project and rewrite move forward, and coming out of that process, we'll make a better determination of what names and terms we want to use in the zoning ordinance. I'm sure that's clear as mud, but there it is.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for that update. And what the district, could somebody refresh my memory of what the district boundaries confusion was?
Laura, that was something we discussed with you early on, and just the differentiation between the district core and periphery, and how those were treated, equally the same in the design guidelines, or if there is any difference.
So yeah, sorry, I was like trying to remember exactly what that discussion was, but yeah, it's the same kind of these terms that we have when the historical overlay districts were created, like historic and contributing for the building. We have a core and periphery, not core, but a core and periphery basically of a core group of structures and a boundary of the entire historic overlay district. And Sarah, if you could go to a map looking at the maps of either Mount Air, where you have the old maps versus the new maps, you might be able to see it on there.
Sure.
I'm not sure if Mount Air has
This one, yeah, it's, I know Woodlawn is one, or here's Drainsville, does Drainsville? Yeah, so here you can see Bill Tavern has
it's in that green, yeah. So you can see there's a core on the left-hand side in that map, and we're trying also to determine if the core was needed, as opposed, and if we treated it any differently than a property on the periphery that, you know, was contributing or non-contributing. So we have these terms that we're not really using to differentiate. So it's more of us for more of a clarification. But this came up both with ZMOD and then with the HOD rewrite of the design guidelines as well. So just something, I don't think we're going to change it specifically with the ZMOD, but this is something to think about as we move forward for clarity's sake, because, sorry, Chris, I know you're waving frantically at me. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just not wanting to add to the dissonance of the muting battle. So I was letting John know I wanted to ask something.
Okay. So if, I lost my train of thought, but basically, if we decide moving forward for clarity's sake and for usability's sake, we want to modify some of those, the core definition, and then also the definition and use of the word historic. Those are the kind of these, not outdated, but the terms we really don't use, and we don't have the justification for all those and why we need them anymore. We do have some history on it, but that's to be further determined. But the question for you all is, using these maps, is it helpful to have a core? Is it helpful to have a periphery, or do we treat it all as the same? So that's just up for discussion and food for thought.
Mr. Daniel, I saw your hand up.
So I would observe that while we don't use the terminology very often, it has come up occasionally, the core of the district, when we are getting into the nuances, particularly of subdivisions. I will point out it comes up a lot, or applicants bring it up as a point of contention as to why their gaudy structure is perfectly acceptable because it's on the outer edge of the district. So I think it might be something worth exploring, because it does seem to highlight an area of particular attention that we as the ARB pay attention to. And if an action is taking place in this area, there is a higher level of scrutiny being given to it. But it seems to only happen in like the actual motions of our practice, not necessarily called out, as Laura pointed out. And it's just an observation as someone who became new to the guidelines when I joined on back in the day, that I was not used to such a concept. If it was in the district, it was in the district. It didn't matter. But it was clear that, and particularly when we had Mr. Burns and Mr. Mobley, on the board, that there was clearly a lot of attention given to those properties. But Mr. Burns clearly had Mr. Beers, I'm losing it today. It's Friday. Mr. Beers obviously was of the point that it's in the district. Doesn't matter if we can't see it. You're in the district, so there's definitely a high standard we should hold you to. So it was a lot to toss about, and I don't think we ever settled on an agreement on it, when we were discussing it back during the development of these kind of concepts. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for my 10 cents.
Okay, well, I'm able to hear, and just to make so that we can make that clear in the discussion of boundaries in the design guidelines. So.
John, are you trying to talk? Because I feel like I can't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I locked up. I didn't hear the last part of what you said. But looking at this Drainsville map, two things occurred to me. One is that it's very helpful to have a map of the district as it was created, which I think we're seeing on the left-hand side. And that now we've got the district as it exists today on the right-hand side. Is that correct?
These are both up to date. This is just the existing zoning maps and the map that we try to highlight those historic properties.
In each case, it would be a good idea to date each map. The one on the right doesn't have a specific date. And the one on the left, it looked like it was platted, but nothing was built yet. The one on the right, it looks like it's a more recent one where all the platted lots have been filled out with new construction. Then also, Mr. Plumpy had mentioned aerial photographs. I think it would be helpful if you had an aerial photograph that would show the historic overlay district at the time of its creation, as well as one that is contemporary. I think that what we'll see over time is that these are getting built out. These districts are getting more and more crowded with new construction as folks exert their by right permissions to build and encroach into what, in the most part, were originally mostly rural settings. Another thing is that there's no mention that I remember of topography. These are three-dimensional objects in a three-dimensional topographic setting. And in the Colton Run district in particular, there have been several things that have come to us that we have to review. They're over the hill and out of sight and will never, ever be seen from the Colton Run mill itself. And so we've had some discussions about view sheds and things like that. Is that something that's under consideration for discussion in the new guidelines? It's view sheds.
Yes, especially when they have been, I mean, we've been going out and surveying and identifying what we see, but also the designation reports do pay attention to that. In the case of Bull Run, Stone Bridge, there's a lot of discussion of the bridge's visibility in relationship to the surrounding, I think, mile of landscape. And so that is something that is discussed. And we can continue to work on those with you as each individual district comes up.
Sarah, this is Joe Plumpy.
Mr. Plumpy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Burns. I was going to say that with the aerial photograph, you can usually superimpose, even if it's a 5 or 10 foot or on top of that aerial photograph, that'd go a long ways. So I remember now, Mr. Burns and Mr. Murphy were always concerned before it was really developed by the topography from various angles. So the topography will help distinguish where it is based on what the view shows dimensions. Thank you.
Okay, so showing the topo lines on top of the aerial.
I think so. I think it'd be very helpful. And,
okay.
Yeah. And maybe if there's another map that is more pertinent, so, perhaps the one on the left on the screen that has the stream. So it just kind of adds a little more context. Mr. Burns is right. It's not three-dimensional things that play into mind with view sheds and what is visible and what's not. So do your best.
Okay.
Mr. Burns, with Laura Arsenault. If I can suggest trying to keep this moving, and because I forgot to send it out to you, if we could send the comments to you today or tomorrow, or send the draft to you today or tomorrow, and have some comments in 2 weeks that I can provide to Sarah and team, so that for next month's meeting we can kind of get a jump start on some of those issues that we have. And then that way we can still discuss it at the meeting if anything else comes up. But at that point, they have some written comments to go on and to work on.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. Okay, now, did you say to send the comments to me or to you?
No, send the comments to me. I'll send out an email, probably a share file with the presentation from tonight and then the draft that they've given us, the general or the overarching, as they're calling them, and then also the specific draft ones that we have. I think it's the Bull Run Stone Bridge. And then if we could have comments back on that by the 25th of September, it would give them a week or so to digest them, and then they could present at the October, I think it's 8th, next ARB meeting.
Okay, that would be great. All right, so So, thank you, Sarah and Laura, for your presentation tonight. I look forward to seeing you next month, and we will give you some written comments to get started on preparing for next month.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you both. Okay, then moving on to board and staff items. The first thing is review and action on approval of previous month's meeting minutes and then approval of payment to the recording secretary. Are there any comments on the August meeting minutes? I'm not seeing hands raised or anybody speaking up. Is that correct? Laura, do you see anybody?
Ms. Aubrey provided some comments to us that we've included, but I didn't get a chance to upload them before tonight's meeting. So, but they are included in the minutes.
Okay. Okay. Any comments or excuse me, any corrections or editorial changes that anybody wants to make tonight? Okay, hearing none, I will ask, will someone please make a motion to approve the minutes, including Ms. Aubrey's editorial comments, and approve payment to the recording secretary?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Daniel.
The ARB approved the August meeting minutes, incorporating Ms. Aubrey's changes that were provided to staff, as well as pay the recording secretary accordingly.
Is there a second to the motion?
I can second.
I'll second.
Okay, who was that? Was that Kay? I didn't catch who said that.
I'll take credit.
Okay, Michelle. Thank you. Excuse me, let me just call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Okay, all opposed, say nay. A motion carries. We have minutes and a approval of payment for the recording secretary. Next is treasurer's report. Laura, can you give us an update? Is there anything different from what you have on the agenda?
No, it's still the same. Just the note of the added, we got our new budget for this, or not our new budget, but our new amount contributed from the Board of Supervisors for $8,500 for fiscal year 2021.
Okay, and would this be a good time to discuss the budget for next year? Or do you want to wait and do that as new business?
That's fine, we can talk about it now. So basically, I'm working on the fiscal year budget request for 2022, which is hard to believe, but we're doing it. And the biggest change since then would be the increase of the payment to the secretary. The ARB voted in, I think, January of this year to increase the payment from $350 to $515 per meeting to be in line with what the History Commission pays their secretary. So the ARB voted on that, and then really I just need another motion tonight to complete that and have the ARB approved to put that in the request for the fiscal year 2022 for the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, with that quick preamble, would anybody be willing to make a motion to ask that our 2022 budget increase to cover the additional costs that we have agreed to for payment to our recording secretary?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB increase its budget request for the next upcoming fiscal year to accommodate the increase in cost adjustment that we have provided for our recording secretary as described by staff a moment ago.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
We've got a second again. I couldn't hear. Was that Ms. Daniel or Ms. Murray?
Yes, this is Murray.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Okay, there's no administrative stuff, and the whole rest of it, most of the rest of it is all discussion and update reports. So Nicole, are you doing Homes Run?
Yep. So we are going to have our first work group meeting next Tuesday. And so we're kind of excited about that. It'll be pretty much introductory, just kind of going through what an HOD is, what a zoning ordinance is, the difference between that and design guidelines, and then looking at what we've already defined as defining characteristics for homes run acres, but then also getting input from the work group on what they feel. Very similar to what we did for Holland Hills in the beginning. And then we'll go from there. Again, I've mentioned this a few times, as Kira and I have been going through just like evaluating from our field work, we're not seeing a lot of changes from the National Register nomination, which I think is good. So obviously there's been some modifications and updates, but I think that it's fairly intact as it was in 2007. So I think there'll be some good discussions, and it'll be interesting to see how the first work group goes, especially since we're going to be doing it on Webex. So, but if anyone has any questions, obviously feel free to email me or call me whenever, and I can update you.
And who are the ARB representatives on the task group?
You've got Kay and Samantha, and then Elise is the one representative from the District Commission. So,
Okay, thank you, folks, for volunteering to help out in that endeavor.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Laura, are you going to talk about Holland Hills?
Yes, Holland Hills is starting back up right on the heels of Homes Run Acres. We've got our first meeting for the work group on September 22nd, and we're hoping to pick up where we left off in March. At the upcoming meeting, we'll be presenting the potential boundaries that staff has, also the contributing and non-contributing structures, as well as having tracers back to talk about the proposed design guidelines that they're looking at. So we will have a very busy, very full meeting, but basically where we left off before the pandemic happened was we were about to present all of our findings to the work group, which hopefully we will be doing on the 22nd. So yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you. Route 1 BRT, Section 106. You had asked for comments. I had none, but I don't know if anybody else had any.
I didn't receive any, but I am finalizing staff's memo today and tomorrow, and I will send it out to all of you when it's completed.
Okay. And the only concern I would have is that it doesn't seem like the BRT is going coincident with the widening of Route 1. If they're two separate projects, and they're not, don't seem like they're running together. And so the upheaval along that corridor could be really arduous unless they get their acts together.
From what I understand is the widening happened, the Section 106 for the widening happened a while ago, and it was for different parts, and it's kind of been piecemeal. So I agree with you that it's, now we've got the BRT, which runs along the entire corridor, coming in, but they have different, they're addressing different issues. So the widening was addressing kind of, well, as they're trying to tell us, the kind of horizontal impact without a vertical impact of the widening. So it's more like takings and things like that. And then the, oh, go ahead, Nicole.
No, well, I was gonna say, I think, and obviously I got here after the widening and stuff was done, but I honestly think that they segmented a project they shouldn't have segmented for 106. You're not supposed to do that unless they wanted to have a programmatic agreement. So I think they tried to make it easier for themselves. So just my opinion.
Well, didn't it have a PA for the widening? I thought we did a PA for the widening.
Yeah, part of the PA for the widening was the oral history of original Mount Vernon High School and a couple other things. I'm not sure.
One, I'm realizing that the widening was a long time ago, it now feels like, because I worked at Fort Belvoir back when that was the case. But that consultation was, Nicole raises an interesting question that I did not think about at the time when working for the Army as a consulting party to FHWA's project. But I would wonder if they saw this as one and the same or as separate parcel actions. But yeah, I think we just have to reconcile the fact that we have that existing agreement that has created a precedent to operate under. This is just a personal opinion, not an ACHP opinion, obviously.
Mr. Burns, I think you're muted.
I'm trying to stay muted to reduce the chances of feedback. Sorry. Okay, rezoning cases?
Sure, that's just if we had any questions on the rezoning cases that were sent out. I don't think we had a couple kind of new ones trickle in, but nothing that have risen to kind of report out to the board about. And I do have one other update if we don't have any questions about the rezoning cases.
I just had one, the what is it, site-specific
Plan amendment.
SSPA, yeah, okay. The one for the Bellevue Shopping Center, the neighborhood's all abuzz because they were supposed to come in with a revised proposal, but nobody's seen it. Mm-hmm. Have you guys seen it?
So we're at the process now where the site-specific plan amendments have not been authorized by the Board of Supervisors yet. So they're all in a feasibility stage. I have not seen it. I can reach out to our colleagues who are working on that. But at this point, it's whether or not we think it's feasible. Staff will make a recommendation on whether or not it's feasible to have it. And then it will go to the Board of Supervisors on whether or not they think it should move forward as a kind of, yes, go ahead and do the research into looking into this type thing. Very similar to how Holland Hills Historic Overlay District, they get a feasibility and then they say, okay, let's see if we agree with the staff recommendation, then we'll go from there. So there's not a concrete plan for it at all. We're still at the very beginning. There's no comp plan amendment. I'm sorry, the SSPA has not been approved by the board yet. That'll happen in early January. But if you're concerned about the is it Bellhaven? Is that what it was?
It's Bellevue Shopping Center.
Bellevue, okay. Bellevue Shopping Center. I'll reach out to. We have different colleagues that are working on different areas and different districts. So the one that's working Mount Vernon, I'll ask.
Right, because I don't know if I remember telling you this or not, but I know several people who live in the brick condos right near it that are interested in making that a National Register eligible district because it's in a floodplain, and there's all sorts of stuff that's involved in that. And so mostly what they're trying to do is figure out ways that they can impede redevelopment of the shopping center. They like it just the way it is. Anyway, that's a little bit off, but go on to the other stuff, please.
Sure. The last one, and I didn't put it on the agenda, I forgot to put it on the agenda, was the reminder of the Confederate names. The History Commission had reached out to the board with a formal letter last month. If we had any comments, I think I sent out John's comments to everybody and I didn't receive any comments back. If that's the case, then John and I will kind of formalize his comments and then put it on letterhead from the ARB and send it back to the History Commission. Denise had asked for that before the next History Commission meeting. So I'm hoping to get it by September 30th that we can finalize that letter and get it to her. That'll give us a week before the next History Commission meeting. But if we didn't have any comments from anyone else, just wanted to give this as kind of your last shout out for if you have any comments to add to John. I think actually Michelle agreed with John, and but I don't think we had any other separate comments coming out of that.
Right, and in the materials you shared with us from the county website, there is a Denise's summary of what she's been doing, and if you want to go back and take a look at that, and then if you want to add anything to what Denise has already put together a fair amount of research. So if you want to add anything to that, please let Laura or me know, and we'll get the letter out as soon as we can.
Hey, John, I think I recommended during the last meeting that we also highlight the ACHP's guidance on controversial properties and share that with the History Commission if they didn't already have it. But with Jordan being there, I would assume he's already seen it. But I kind of threw that in as what I thought would go along with your comments from staff.
Okay, yeah, that's good, because there's been any number of webinars and stuff that are popping up from different organizations about dealing with controversial topics and controversial named features, and so it's a hot topic right now.
And on that note, John, there will be at the board of supervisors hearing on next Tuesday. They're going to be considering the discussion about whether or not to remove the John Marr memorial outside of the Fairfax courthouse, which is the first soldier killed in the Confederate. So if anyone's interested in that, we can please watch the board of supervisors hearing. Denise will be presenting on it.
Okay. All righty. Any correspondence or announcements? We don't have any. Old business we need to discuss?
I have one announcement, John. I want to just state that I have been taken off assignment of reviewing 106 consultations at Fort Belvoir. So I am no longer the case reviewer for the installation. We now have a full-time Army liaison at the ACHP who is assisting with all Army reviews. Her name is Rachel Magnum. I'll probably share the info with Laura just so she has her contact info, but that means I am now freed up to be more vocal about things happening at Belvoir. So, which is probably to Belvoir's detriment now.
I would guess you're an insider, and you have a non-disclosure agreement. Is that correct? Or
I am going to confirm with my OGC what I can and can't do, but I believe it's going to allow me to participate on new 106 consultations more readily.
Okay. I did notice I have to recuse myself from these things, but Laura also shared with us a letter from VDHR about the Lytle store at Lorton and the new proposed little commercial district inside. And if I may make an observation about that, is that this body uses the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic preservation in evaluating proposed work, as does VDHR in evaluating things for the Virginia state tax credits, as does the National Park Service for evaluating things for potential federal rehabilitation tax credits. We're all using the same standards. We're all coming at it from a slightly different perspective. But this one's a little unique in that the memorandum of agreement, the county has to seek our approval on things. And I don't know, in the hierarchy of government things, where does the advisory council's memorandum of agreement stand in relation to the Park Service's application of the Tax Act regs? That's an interesting discussion. I will raise it with folks with the Park Service, but that's something that you might think about talking to people at the advisory council on that. Is we've got two agencies using the same standards coming up with different guidance.
It has been a frequent challenge I have seen in many situations where the tax credit offices and the 106 offices within a SHPO, a State Historic Preservation Office, for those who don't know the acronym, or any other group, don't always necessarily align with their interpretation of the standards. And then you end up having two conflicting views. What we frequently see encouraged is that we ask those houses to get their affairs in order and then bring it to the agency to then administer to a disagreement that's coming up. So I would probably suggest under the MOA that we go to the agencies involved to work through a disagreement. And look at its provisions, but it it comes up more often than you think. I've seen it happen with St. Elizabeth's too, just in general with the projects going on there at the asylum, that obviously one person's interpretation of, we're being modern but also sensitive is, oh no, you're being offensive and too drastic. And I'm sure you see that all the time, John, in your position. And all it takes is one person retiring to then change it dramatically, because then someone new comes in and their perspective is completely different. Without going into the details of the discussion last time, I think this body tried to provide a middle ground solution, in the sense that we recognize that there are different perspectives, and hopefully the applicant could weigh all that in a way that would make it reasonable when they started pursuing tax credits. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And Virginia, unfortunately, has a reputation of their National Register side of the House not seeing eye to eye frequently with the Tax Act side of the House. And so that there is that internal conflict within the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's not new, but I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that the good advice that we appear to have provided fell flat in Richmond, and so we'll have to. Those guys have a tough road to hoe to get that project approved. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up as an information point. Any other business from anyone tonight? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Joe's already at the game, so I moved to.
I like that motion. Let's play ball. I'm ready to go.
Okay, I take that with a motion for adjournment, Mr. Pope? Yes, okay. Motion for adjournment is always in order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Play ball.
Okay.
See you next month, guys.
Thank you all. Have a good evening, and we'll see you in October.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.